So friends, now we will be talking about the Indian banking system. As we all know, Indian banking system is governed by Reserve Bank of India, and it has got some specialized institutions which fulfill the need of different sectors like NABARD, which is meant for agriculture and rural developments, SIDBI, which is meant for industries development. Besides, we have got various banks like scheduled commercial banks, regional rural banks, local area banks, urban cooperative banks, state short-term cooperative credit structure, which consists of state cooperative bank, DCCBs, and primary agriculture cooperative societies. Then we have got a state cooperative agriculture and rural development bank, which is called long-term cooperative credit structure, which provides credit for investment in agriculture sector. What is banking? Section 5B of Banking Regulation Act defines banking means the accepting for the purpose of lending or investment deposits of money from the public, repayable on demand or otherwise, and withdrawable by check, draft, order or otherwise. That means banking is the function intermediation function between the persons who have got surplus funds and the persons who need these funds. So banking is a job of accepting the deposit and distributing or disbursing it in the form of loans and also investing. These deposits are payable on demand or otherwise. Major activities of banks are acceptance of deposits. The deposits can be of three types: savings bank, and current account and term deposit. Besides, there are now hybrid deposits, like you have got savings cum FD deposit. If you have got more than a specified balance, then the account automatically transfer it in the form of fixed deposit. Second function of bank is loaning and investment. The deposits mobilized by the banks are lent to the needy borrowers to earn income. Similarly, some investment is to be made so that the depositors' interests are protected. Next function is issue of letter of credit, traveler's check, buying and selling of bullion, provision of safe deposit vaults, remittance of money, acting as agent of government, local authorities and person. The banks act as agent for government, like for collection of tax, sales tax, income tax, etc. First category of banks are scheduled commercial banks. Scheduled commercial banks are those banks which are included in second schedule of RBI Act 1934. These banks have to comply with the provisions of section 42(6) of RBI Act. That is, the value of its paid up capital and reserves is not less than rupees 5 lakhs. Here by value we means real and exchangeable value, and not the nominal value which may be shown in the books of accounts. That means real and exchangeable value means the value of paid up capital and reserves minus accumulated losses. Next condition is that RBI is satisfied that its affairs are not conducted in a manner detrimental to the interest of depositors. That means the functions should be such that the interest of depositors are protected. Categories of scheduled commercial bank. There are 27 public sector banks, which include SBI and 6 associate banks, 19 nationalized banks, and IDBI Bank is also a nationalized bank. Then we have got 7 new private sector banks, which include ICICI Bank, SDFC Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Yes Bank, IndusInd Bank, Axis Bank, and Development Credit Bank. Similarly, we have 15 old private sector banks. Prominent among those are Nainital Bank, Jammu and Kashmir Bank, ING Vyas Bank, Dhan Lakshmi Bank, Federal Bank, etc. 31 foreign banks are operating in India. Largest banks in terms of their branches in India are Standard Chartered Bank, HSBC, and Citibank. These foreign banks are mostly operating in urban and metropolitan centers. Outreach of Scheduled Commercial Bank as on 31st March 2009. We can see there are 20,058 rural branches, 16,146 semi-urban branches. There are 14,761 urban branches and 13,643 metro branches. So we can see that almost equal number of branches are there in metro and urban branches. Similarly, the banks have got 43,651 ATMs. These ATMs also provide banking services to the customers, and day by day their use is increasing. Activities covered under services. The banks lend for various sectors like agriculture, industry, services, retail loans. So agriculture and industries are self-evident, self-explanatory, but here we will explain the various activities which are covered under the services. Services include the transport operators, computer software, tourism, hotels and restaurants, shipping, professional services, trade, wholesale other than food procurement, retail trade, real estate loans, non-banking financial services, non-banking financial companies, and all other services. Similarly, personal loan activities include consumer durable loans, housing, advances against FDR, advances to individuals against shares, bonds, etc., credit card outstanding, education loan, and other personal loans. Deposits. The performance of scheduled commercial banks in the field of deposits are given as under. The components are demand deposit, that is current deposit, which are repayable on demand. So the banks as on 31st March 2008 were having demand deposits of 4,42,056 crores, which increased to 4,72,578 crores as on 31st March 2009. The demand deposits recorded a growth rate of 6.46%. Similarly, the savings bank increased from 7,44,051 crores as on 31st March 2008 to 8,74,539 crores. The growth rate recorded was 17.54%. The term deposits increased from 21,33,953 crores as on 31st March 2008 to 27,1684 crores as on 31st March. They recorded an increase of 27.28%. The total deposits increased from 33,20,060 crores to 40,63,201 crores. The growth rate was 22.38%. If we analyze the growth rate, the minimum growth rate was recorded in case of demand deposits, while maximum growth rate was recorded in case of term deposits. So we can see that public is mostly interested in keeping the term deposit with banks so that they can earn higher interest. Loans and advances. Another major function of banks is to disburse loans. So we will see how much loans they have disbursed and what is the outstanding. Food credit. Before we go in for the figures of food credit, let me explain food credit. Food credit is the credit provided by a consortium of commercial banks to Food Corporation of India for procurement of food grains. So in the as on March 2008, the banks provided 44,399 crore as food credit, which increased to 46,211 crores as on 31st March 2009. It has recorded a growth rate of 4.08%. The next sector comes to agriculture and allied activities, where the banks lent an amount of 2,75,343 crores, which was increased to 3,38,656 crores, and the banks recorded a growth rate of 22.99%. Industries, the banks disbursed 8,66,875 crores to the industries, which increased to 10,54,390, and it recorded a growth rate of 21.63%. Similarly, the services loans were 5,53,185 crores, which increased to 6,46,765 crores as on 31st March 2009, recording a growth rate of 16.91%. The banks also disbursed a loan of 5,07,488 crores under personal loans, which increased to 5,62,479 crores as on 31st March 2009, recording a growth rate of 10.83. The total loans were 22,47,289, which increased to 26,48,501 crores, recording a growth rate of 17.85%. As we can see, the maximum growth rate was recorded in case of agriculture and allied activities, followed by industries, services, and then personal loan. We can see the rate of growth in personal loan has declined because of the meltdown in economy, deceleration of growth rate of GDP in the Indian economy also. Highlights of the performance of Scheduled Commercial Bank. The bank's CRAR was 13.2% as on 31st March 2009. By CRAR we mean capital to risk asset ratio. That means the banks have to maintain capital to the assets which have been assigned weights in relation to the risk they carry. So the banks were having CRAR of 13.2%, which was above the mandatory rate of 12%. The bank's deposits touched 40,63,203 crores from 3,32,061 crore and recorded a growth rate of 22.4%. The loan outstanding touched 26,48,501 crores from 22,47,289 crore. Growth rate was 17.85%. The bank's profits also increased from 31,203 crores to 42,726 crores. So we can say the overall performance of Scheduled Commercial Bank during the year 31st March 2009 was satisfactory, and they have contributed a lot to the progress of Indian economy. Next major agency which is functioning in our country is Regional Rural Bank. These banks were established in 1975 with a view to developing the rural economy by providing for the purpose of development of credit, development of agriculture, trade, commerce, industry and other productive activities in rural area, credit and other facilities particularly to small and marginal farmers, agricultural laborers, artisan and small farmers. As we all know that the commercial banks were nationalized in the year 1969 with a view to improve the bank provision of banking facilities in the rural areas and also to different priority sectors, but a review by Narasimhan Committee indicated that credit by commercial banks in the rural area has not been good, has been negligible. So, it was thought to establish a new category of banks which were called regional rural banks. The Narasimhan Committee made a recommendation that these banks should have the local feel of the cooperative banks and have the professionalism of commercial banks. With this background, these regional rural banks were established in the year 1975 and they were established by commercial banks which were called sponsor banks. The share capital of these banks was contributed by Government of India, sponsor bank and state government in the proportion of 50%, 35% and 15%. Its authorized share capital of the RRB is 5 crores and its paid up capital is rupees 1 crore. First 5 regional rural banks were set up on 2nd October 1975. These banks were set up by Punjab National Bank, State Bank of India, Syndicate Bank, United Bank of India and United Commercial Banks. 2 of these RRBs were set up in UP. Those are Gorakhpur RRB and Prathama Bank in Moradabad. RRB's history. We will now talk about the history of RRBs. The number of RRBs increased to 196 by 1994. As the RRBs were established as small banks, many restrictions were imposed by the Government of India in the form of target group lending. That means they were supposed to lend only to small and marginal farmers, artisans and poor people. So, they were deprived of the opportunity of lending to the bigger clients. Then there were restrictions on types of business to be undertaken. Also there were restrictions on investments, and besides these restrictions, the poor recovery made these institutions sick. So, Government of India launched a restructuring program for RRBs in the year 93-94. In this program, the Government of India approved the recapitalization of RRBs. That means the Government of India agreed to make good the losses which were suffered by these RRBs. Also, there were relaxation which were given in business procedures and parameters, like the RRBs were allowed to lend to non-target groups. They were allowed to take up non-fund business. And also there were relaxation given for taking up decisions by the board of directors. While the Government of India decided to provide financial assistance, it also wanted that some change management program should be implemented in these banks. So, a change management program in the form of organization development intervention was launched by the training institutes of NABARD to improve the organizational climate and imply participation in the decision making of RRBs. The restructuring of RRBs gave desired result. The Government of India accepted the recommendations of Narasimham Committee regarding adoption of prudential norms. Income recognition and asset classification norms were also made applicable to RRBs. Earlier, the banks were recognizing the income on accrual basis. That means the recognition of income was not based on the record of recovery. So, the Government of India said that income should be recognized only when the asset has been classified as a standard. So, the Government of India gave guidelines for classification of assets. The assets were classified into two sets. One is a standard where there is no problem of recovery, and other set was called non-performing assets. Non-performing assets means the accounts where there is problem in recovery of installment of principal, or there is problem of recovery of interest. These norms were made stringent over a period of time. Nowadays, the norms for NPA classification is 90 days. If we do not get the installment or interest in case of term loan in 90 days, these loans are classified as non-performing assets. Similarly, the prudential norms also include the capital adequacy norms or CRAR. So, these norms were also made applicable to RRBs. The Advisory Committee on Flow of Credit to Agriculture and Related Activities, Vyas Committee, recommended the restructuring of RRBs. The Government of India accepted the recommendation, and with a view to improve the viability of RRBs and enable them to compete with other banking institutions, Government of India has implemented a sponsor bank wise merger of RRBs at a state level from the year 2005. Let me explain what do we mean by sponsor bank wise merger of RRBs at a state level. Suppose in a state like UP, there were 40 RRBs, and out of 40 they were sponsored by 8 commercial banks. So, if one commercial bank has sponsored 5 RRBs, all these 5 RRBs were merged into one, and they have been made one RRB. This has been done to increase their balance sheet size, and so that they are able to compete better with other banks. Because of the merger of RRBs, their number has come down to 86 as on 31st March 2009. The Government of India also once again came out with a scheme for phased recapitalization of RRBs which were having negative net worth in the year 2007-8. The recapitalization process has been completed in case of 27 RRBs, and an amount of 1796 crore has been infused in these RRBs. Performance of RRBs during 2008-9. The deposits of RRBs touched 1,20,189 crores and recorded an increase of 21%. As we can say, though the banks are majorly working in the rural areas and semi-urban areas, yet they have been able to mobilize deposits to the tune of 1,20,01,189 crores. Similarly, their loans outstanding have touched 67,802 crores and recorded an increase of 15%. the credit deposit ratio of RRBs was 56%. Before we go further, let me explain what is credit deposit ratio. The Government of India, the Reserve Bank has prescribed that ideal credit deposit ratio should be 60%. That means the deposits outstanding and the credit outstanding ratio should be 60%. So RRBs are almost closer to that ratio. Net NPA of RRBs were 1,188 crores, which is 1.75% of the outstanding loans. It is a commendable performance. First, we will talk about net NPA. Net NPA means the NPAs of banks after the provisions have been made. That means the banks are supposed to make provisions against the NPAs, and the amount of these provisions, when they are reduced from the total gross NPA outstanding, these are called net NPA, which is less than 2% in case of RRBs. It was also seen that 80 RRBs were in profit while 6 were in loss. So the performance of RRBs have also been good in the year 2008-9. Local area bank. Besides RRBs, the Reserve Bank also introduced a new bank in the year 1996. The Reserve Bank launched the scheme of local area bank in August 1996. The idea behind setting up these new private local banks with jurisdiction over 2-3 contiguous districts was to help mobilization of rural savings by local institutions and make them available for investment in local areas. We can say these were like RRBs, but the RRBs were sponsored by a commercial bank, while local area banks, the private sector banks or private parties could also establish these local area banks. At present, only 4 local area banks are functioning. One is Capital Local Area Bank Limited, another is Coastal Local Area Bank Limited, third is Krishna Bhima Samriddhi Local Area Bank Limited, fourth is Subhadra Local Area Bank Limited. Business parameters, these are in crores. These banks have been able to mobilize deposits of 616 crores. They have given advances of 439 crores as on 31st March 2009, and their profits were only 14.1 crores. So keeping in view the less number of banks and also that they have not been able to make much progress after their announcement in 1996, the Reserve Bank has decided not to issue any further licenses for these banks. Now we will be talking about the cooperative credit structure. The cooperative credit structure in India can be divided in 2 categories. One is urban cooperative banks, second is rural cooperative credit institutions or RCIs. Urban cooperative banks, the urban areas are served by urban cooperative banks. These banks are governed by Reserve Bank of India and have been divided into 2 categories. One is scheduled commercial bank, another is and one is scheduled urban cooperative bank and another is non-scheduled urban cooperative bank. Grade wise distribution of urban cooperative banks. Reserve Bank has divided these urban cooperative banks into 4 categories depending on their strength. Grade 1 and 2 are relatively stronger banks. Grade 3 and 4 are weak and sick banks. With a view to improve the health of urban cooperative banks, a vision document was prepared by RBI in the year 2004-5 and based on feedback, a medium-term framework was put in place for improving the functioning of these urban cooperative banks. We can see the progress under medium-term framework has been good. The Reserve Bank has signed MOU with state governments with a view to address the problems of dual control. By dual control means we mean, as we all know, the cooperative is a state subject and banks are governed by Reserve Bank. So there is a problem of dual control. Sometimes state government do not adhere to the directive of Reserve Bank of India. So the Reserve Bank of India sought to address these problems by signing an MOU with state governments. As on 20th July 2009, Reserve Bank has been able to sign MOU with 26 state governments and also with central government in respect of multi-state urban cooperative bank. By multi-state urban cooperative banks, we mean the urban cooperatives bank whose area of operation extends to many states. Progress of urban cooperative bank is the number of urban cooperative banks have declined from 1770 in 2008 to 1721 in 2009. That means there are some urban cooperative banks have closed down or merged. Similarly, the number of grade 3 and grade 4 banks declined from 496 to 392 in 2009. That means 104 urban cooperative banks have been closed or merged. The number of scheduled urban cooperative bank has remained 53. That means the strong urban cooperative banks have remained at that level, but the number of unscheduled urban cooperative banks have declined to 1668 in 2009 from 1717 in the year 2008. So we can see that there has been improvement in the functioning of urban cooperative bank over a period of time after the launch of medium-term framework. Now we will be talking about the business parameters of urban cooperative bank. The urban cooperative banks have mobilized deposits of 1,39,871 crores as on 31st March 2008, which increased to 1,58,733 crores as on 31st March 2009. Their deposit growth rate was 13.5%. They lent, their advances were 90,444 as on 31st March 2008, which increased to 97,918 as on 31st March 2009. They recorded an increase of 8.3%. The net profit increased from 1,520 crores to 1,746 crores. And the encouraging part is that their NPAs declined from 6,083 crores as on 31st March 2008 to 5,318 crores. There has been a decline of around 13% in their NPAs. So we can see that their performance of urban cooperative banks have increased over a period of time. Rural cooperative credit structure. The rural cooperative credit structure can be divided into two parts. Short-term cooperative credit structure comprising of state cooperative bank, district central cooperative banks, PACs, primary agriculture credit societies, farmer service societies or LAMs, which catered to short term or medium term credit requirement of farmers. Next is long term credit structure consisting of state cooperative agriculture and rural development banks and primary cooperative agriculture rural development banks, catering mainly to long term credit needs of the farmers. By short term credit needs and medium term credit needs, we mean short term is defined which has got a term of 18 months, medium term is from 18 months to 7 years, and long term credit is for more than 7 years. Structure of rural cooperative credit structure as on 31st March 2009 is, they have got total 96,061 units. There are 31 state cooperative bank, 371 district central cooperative banks and 94,942 packs. Then long term cooperative structure, we have got 20 state cooperative agriculture rural development banks and 697 PCARDBs. What is PACS? PACS is the base level unit for short term credit cooperative credit structure, and basically it is meant for providing crop loan. The definition is PACS means Primary Agriculture Credit Society, the principal business of which is to provide financial accommodation to its members for agricultural purposes or purposes connected with agriculture activities, marketing of crops. So basically the primary agriculture cooperative societies provide loan for raising the crops and marketing of crops. Next is, its bylaws do not permit admission of any other cooperative society as a member. So these societies cannot have any other society as the member, they can only have individuals as members. The only exception is that district central cooperative bank, which is contributing to their share capital from state government funds, can be a member of PACS. PACS are also known by the name of Farmer Service Society and also large Adivasi multi-purpose societies, LAMs. So they are also known as FSS and LAMs. Central Cooperative Bank. The Central Cooperative Bank means the principal cooperative society in a district, in a state, the primary object of which is financing of other cooperative societies in that district. So the main function of Central Cooperative Bank is to provide financial accommodation to its member cooperative societies, though now they are also providing banking services to other individuals also. Next is State Cooperative Bank. State Cooperative Bank means the principal cooperative society in a state, the primary object of which is financing the other cooperative societies in the state. That means it will be providing the financial accommodation to all cooperative societies in the state. State Land Development Bank. State Land Development Bank means the cooperative which is the principal land development bank by whatever name called in a state, and which has as its primary object the providing of long term finance for agriculture development. As we have said, by long term finance we mean the investment credit for agriculture. These purposes can be minor irrigation, dairy, poultry, plantation and horticulture, land development. These banks will provide loan for all these activities. Agriculture mechanization, 2-tier and 3-tier structure. In case of STCCS, short term cooperative credit structure, both 2-tier and 3-tier structure are functioning in different state. 2-tier means State Cooperative Bank and its branches and PACs. 3-tier means State Cooperative Bank, DCCBs and PACs. Similarly, there are federal and unitary structure. By federal we means there are different organizations which are federated at the district level and at state level, like PACs are federated at district level and DCCBs are federated at state level. By unitary structure we mean that there are only branches of the structure in the state. Performance of State Cooperative Bank as on 31st March 2008. We will see that while we were talking about RRBs and scheduled commercial bank, we were talking about the performance as on 31st March 2009. But in case of state cooperative banks and other cooperative structures, we are talking about 31st March 2008. The major difference is that there is still less computerization in cooperative banks, and also they are given more time for submission of their balance sheets. So we have got latest data only up to 31st March 2008. So we will talk about this year only. The deposits, the state cooperative banks mobilized deposits of 48,560 crores as on 31st March 2008, which increased to 52,973 as on 31st March 2008. Similarly, they made an advance of 47,354 crores as on 31st March 2007, which increased to 48,228 crores as on 31st March 2008. As you can see, the very nominal increase was recorded in case of advances. The major disturbing feature is that their profits declined from 275 crores as on 31st March 2007 to 185 crores as on 31st March 2008. But their NPAs declined from 6,704 crores to 6,169 crores. So, but overall, if you have a look at the business parameters of a state cooperative bank, you will find that not much growth has been recorded by these banks and their profits have come down significantly. Now we will be talking about the performance of SCARDB as on 31st March 2008. Here you will see the deposits figures are very less because the SCARDBs and PCARDBs are not allowed to mobilize demand deposits. They can only mobilize time deposits. Besides, they are not part of the banking system, so their collection and everything is delayed. That's why they are not able to mobilize much deposit. Their deposits increased from 605 crores as on 31st March 2007 to 645 crore as on 31st March 2008. They are heavily dependent on borrowing from higher tier institutions because they don't have much resource mobilization by their own. Their borrowing was 16,662 crores as on 31st March 2007, which declined to 15,483 crores as on 31st March 2008. Their advances declined from 80,644 crores to 18,217 crores, and they came into loss. They recorded a loss of 247 crore as on 31st March 2008 against a profit of 89 crores as on 31st March 2007. Similarly, there was an increase in their NPAs, which touched 6,292 crores as on 31st March, while it was 5,643 crores as on 31st March 2007. So, their NPAs increased by almost 600 crores. They made a loss of around 250 crores. There was a decline in their advances. So, if you have a look at their performance, you find that these institutions are not doing well and they are in urgent need of support if they are to be if they have to cater to the rural populace. Now we will be talking about the performance of DCCBs as on 31st March 2008. As you know, there are 371 DCCBs and they are mobilizing deposits from individuals. So their deposits increased from 94,529 crores to 1,02,986 crores. They also made an increase in advances, which increased from 89,038 crores to 91,374 crores. But here also we see that they made a loss of 65 crores in the year 31st March 2008 against a profit of 31 crores as on 31st March 2007. And their NPAs also recorded an increase. It touched 18,728 crores as against 17,495 crores as on 31st March 2007. So, almost 2,000 crores increase in their NPAs. So, that is also a very problematic areas for DCCBs, and this has to be tackled immediately if they have to improve their performance. Now, we will be talking about the PCARDBs. They are Primary Cooperative Agriculture and Rural Development Bank. Their deposits declined from 341 crores to 331 crores. Their borrowings declined from 12,751 crores to 10,206 crores. Their advances declined from 12,114 crores to 9,529 crores. Their profits declined. Their losses increased by almost 199 crores. They were in the loss of 147 crores, which increased to 346 crores as on 31st March 2008. And their NPAs also increased from 4,316 crores to 5,113 crores, almost an increase of 800 crores. So, if you have a look at the performance of PCARDBs, it is overall a very disappointing picture, and the Government of India, recognizing the seriousness of the problem, has appointed Vaidyanathan Committee to look into the problems and make a recommendation for its revival package. The Vaidyanathan Committee has given its recommendations to the Government of India, but the Government of India is yet to accept the recommendation and action is yet to be initiated on these recommendations. Performance of PACs as on 31st March 2008. The PACs have been able to mobilize deposits to the tune of 25,449 crores. Their advances have also increased from 58,620 crore to 65,666 crores. But here also there is problem that their overdues to loan outstanding have increased from 27% to 37%, increase of 10%. So, performance of short term cooperative structure is also not very encouraging. Keeping in view the performance of short term cooperative structure, the Government of India has appointed a committee under the chairmanship of Sri Vaidyanathan of Madras Institute of Technology in the year 2004. The term of reference for this committee was to recommend an implementable action plan for reviving the rural credit institutions. The study which was taken up by the committee showed the following figures. There were 1,12,309 packs and their accumulated losses were 4,595 crores. There were 367 DCCBs whose accumulated losses were 4,401 crores. 30 DCCBs, their accumulated losses were 281 crores. So, the overall total short-term cooperative structure was in loss. Next important point was there was decline in market share from 62% in 92-93 to 34% in 2002-3. That means their competitors have moved ahead and they were losing their business. The PACs had a borrowing membership of 12 crore, crores, out of which only 50% of were the borrowing members. That means they were doing borrowing business, loaning business for only 50% of their members. The Vaidyanathan committee, after studying the structures, came out with the recommendation that revival and revitalization is compulsory both on ideological and functional grounds, because cooperatives have a wider and deeper reach in rural areas. Salient features of revival package. The Government of India finalized a revival package for the short-term cooperative structures. So, it had got three components. One was to provide financial assistance to bring the system to an acceptable level of health. The Government of India made a provision of 14,000 crores for this purpose, introduced legal institutional reforms necessary for their democratic, self-reliant and efficient functioning, and take measures to improve the quality of management. Because unless the quality of management is improved, no financial assistance can improve the institutions. The present status is that 25 state governments have signed MOU with NABARD. A special audit of 79,822 packs have been taken up, and it has been completed at 79,530 packs. The special audit of central cooperative banks has been taken up in 12 states, and an amount of 7,987 crores has been released by NABARD as Government of India share for recapitalization of 49,764 packs. The state governments have released 752.88 crores as their share. This completes the Indian banking system, but non-banking financial companies are also a part of financial system which provide loans to needy persons. So, what is non-banking financial company? A non-banking financial company is a company registered under Companies Act 1956 and is engaged in business of loans and advances or acquisition of securities issued by government or local authorities, other securities, but it does not include any institution whose principal business is that of agriculture activity, industrial activity, sale and purchase and construction of immovable property. Difference between non-banking financial companies and banks. Major difference are that non-banking financial companies cannot accept demand deposits. These are not part of payment and settlement system, hence cannot issue checks drawn on itself or demand drafts. Its deposits are not covered by DICGC, that is Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporations. Types of NBFCs. There are three types of NBFCs. One is asset finance company, investment company and loan company. What is an asset finance company? Asset finance company is defined as company which is carrying on its principal business, the financing of physical assets for supporting productive or economic activities like automobiles, tractors, lathe machine, generator sets, etc. The principal business for this purpose is defined as aggregate of financing real or physical assets supporting economic activity, and income arising therefrom is not less than 60% of its total assets and total income respectively. That means these asset finance companies should finance the assets, and income from these assets should not be less than 60% of its total. Next category is loan company. Loan company means any financial company which provides finance whether by way of making loans and advances or any activities, but does not include an equipment leasing company or hire purchase finance company. Next is investment company, which is a financial institution carrying on its principal business as acquisition of securities. Examples of NBFC. Loan company. Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services Limited is one of India's leading non-banking finance companies. It provides loans for festival expenditure, medical needs, education needs, agricultural needs, marriage, health enhancement, vehicle repairing, insurance purchase, etc. Other examples of NBFCs are Bajaj Finance, SKS Microfinance, Electronic Finance Limited, that is asset finance company, and Peerless General and Finance Investment Limited. So friends, during this session we have talked about the banking system of India. We have talked about the scheduled commercial banks and its performance. We have talked about the history of RRBs and the progress made by RRBs, the merger of RRBs. Similarly, we have also talked about the short-term cooperative credit structure and also long-term cooperative credit structure. We have also talked about the non-banking financial companies. All these banks and non-banking financial companies are engaged in supporting the economic activities in the country, thereby making a contribution to the GDP of the country. Thank you very much.